I set a goal of 650 pounds of food this year, and right now I'm feeling a little bit behind. And some crops are struggling before they even got into the garden. So today I'm doing what I can to fix it before it starts costing me real harvests. My lettuce has had spotty germination. Flashy butter gem germinated quickly and evenly and are huge. The merlot lettuce germinated poorly in the first round, so I reseeded and it improved a little. Now I just have 2 cells with missing seedlings. My buttercrunch seeds are very old. Last year they germinated fine, but this year, nothing. I tried twice and then reseeded on the 3rd try with winter density. They germinated pretty well. They're just so far behind the flashy butter gem and the merlot. In this tray, I had put my green onions to divide the lettuce varieties. I had planted green onions and lettuce in the garden and they looked pretty, but it does not work well at this seedling stage. The lettuce plants were growing so much faster than the green onions that they just smothered out the green onion plants. Lettuce is one of the first crops I get to harvest out of my garden, and it's one that we buy a lot of. If this doesn't come together, it's not just a delay, it's money out of our pocket and less food towards my 650-pound goal. I decided to sow some more lettuce seeds. I got some fresh buttercrunch seed, and I'm going to add a 4th variety called Drunken Woman. I want some extra seedlings as a safety net, just in case something happens to the seedlings I already have growing. I'm slightly worried that the flashy butter gem lettuce might just go straight to seed when I plant it because it's so big right now. I also want to try my hand at some seed saving this season because I think a lot of the germination issues I'm having stems from not refreshing my seed collection. I was thinking what I was going to do if all of these sprout and grow well and the tray of lettuce that I already have does well outdoors, what I'm going to do with all these extra plants. And then I thought, I'm going to be planting a bunch of melons out. I can probably interplant these lettuce plants with the melons and let them go to seed there to collect their seed. So I think that will be the plan with these guys, if I don't need them to replace the first planting because they bolted and went to seed. On April 1st, I sowed my spring broccoli and cabbage. For cabbage, I did some golden acre and a dwarf variety called Tiara. The Tiara germinated wonderfully. I need to thin them down to 1 per block. The golden acre had some blocks that were great and others that had nothing at all. Overall, I had 6 seedlings in 3 blocks. So I decided I needed to divide them into their own soil balls rather than thinning them down 1 per block. On the same day, I started my broccoli. I started 2 different varieties to test which would produce the largest heads in my garden: Gypsy and Green Magic. Gypsy germinated quickly, but Green Magic, the seeds were older, and germination was slow and very inconsistent. Broccoli is one of those crops where I need a specific number of plants in order to make my plan work. If I don't have enough plants at this stage, I can't make it up later. I either hit my numbers or I don't. Broccoli is my largest spring crops in terms of the numbers of plants I need. Typically, I would just seed to the strongest seedling per block, but if I did that this year, I wouldn't have enough plants to meet my planting plan. So I decided to divide all the broccoli seedlings into their own soil balls. In order to do this, I very gently pull the soil blocks apart. Sometimes I didn't get all the roots, but most of the time the blocks split pretty well. Then, using wet soil, I formed these little balls around the seedlings. I gave them a pretty good squeeze to make sure the balls were nice and put together. I did have a few plants shock a little, and that's to be expecting. We're pulling at their roots. But they have all recovered pretty nicely. I ended up with 89 broccoli plants. That's enough for my planting plan, plus a few extras, which I always like to have on hand. I have been busy with some other projects and completely forgot to get my potatoes chitting. I moved them into the light and warmth, but after a week or 2, I still wasn't getting the growth I wanted. I tried to remedy this. I moved them into a cardboard box with a couple bananas. Hope was that the gases from the ripening bananas would help the potatoes get their act together and sprout. It didn't work. They still look exactly the same, and I want to plant this weekend. So I decided to go buy some seed potatoes and get those prepped. Don't worry, these potatoes won't go to waste. I'll turn them into some gnocchi. I prepped them by cutting the larger potatoes in half A couple I had to cut into thirds so that I had the 24 potatoes I needed. The goal when you're cutting seed potatoes is to get at least one good eye, but ideally 2 or 3 good eyes per piece, and that no piece is smaller than 2 ounces. Now I just need to let the cut ends dry out a little bit so they don't rot while they're in the soil, and that's why I wanted to deal with it now on Wednesday for my planting on Saturday. Potatoes are one of the highest yielding crops in my garden, and they also set up what I can plant after them. So if they're late getting started, it's not just one harvest that's delayed, it can throw off multiple rounds of crops. I'm very proud of my onion seedlings this year. The changes I made in my process, increasing the pot depth, starting them earlier, and not planting as many per pot has made a huge difference in their size. They are also so much chunkier than they have been in the previous years. With onions, I'm trying to grow the same amount of onions as I did last year, but using half the space. So having strong seedlings like this is huge because it means I don't have to waste space on any weak plants. This spring has been slow to start with below average temperatures, making it feel like the season is never going to start. I'm really hoping we're not going to have one of those years where we just jump over spring temperatures altogether and jump straight to the summer ones. Either way, hardening off seedlings will be especially important. I'm starting this process nice and early. If the temperatures are above 7 degrees Celsius, the seedlings are going outside for longer and longer periods each day. The weather has been overcast these past couple of weeks, which has helped make the hardening off process gentler, allowing me to leave the seedlings outside longer than when hardening off in the sun. So when it's overcast, I can start the seedlings off at about 4 hours per day versus when it's sunny, I start the seedlings off with 2 hours a day and increase in 2-hour increments. With the weather being so unpredictable, hardening off becomes so important because losing plants now to shock would set me back even further. I've been focusing on upgrading my berry patch early this spring, and it's turned out great, but there were some setbacks that made the projects take so much longer to complete than I had expected. My overall energy has taken a hit. So as we head into planting season, I'm doing a few things to get my energy back. I'm making sure I'm eating well, that I'm sleeping well, and that I'm tackling small cleaning projects around the house so that I don't get overwhelmed once it's time to spend more time in the garden. I think we often forget that part of taking care of the garden and taking care of our families means also taking care of ourselves. Every year, there seems to be something at this point in the season that makes me feel behind. But catching it early and correcting it quickly helps get me back on track. The goal is still 650 pounds of food, and little setbacks and feeling behind is just part of that. In the next one, we'll be kicking off the planting season with some onions.